In this lesson, we're going to modify the loops from the last program to allow a person to only partially fill an array. In the last lesson, we had the person type in exactly 10 numbers into the array that was in that program. And in this one, we're going to give the person the ability to type in up to 25 positive numbers into an array and indicate that they're done by entering 0 or a negative. We'll also show a use of a defined constant for the size of an array, since that's a typical style many programs will use. So we're going to begin by declaring a constant for the maximum size of our array. So we'll call this const int, and then max size, and establish that the maximum size of our array is 25. So again, typical style is to use capital letters for that constant. Then we'll declare our array here, so we'll call this array numbers again. And instead of putting 25 in here, we'll put the name max size for that constant. So it is allowed to, in the square braces in an array declaration, use the name of a defined constant, in this case max size. So again, in this program, we're going to have the person type in up to 25 positive numbers into this array, which means they may not enter all 25 elements. And it may be important to track exactly how many elements they've entered or get positive values in this array. So we're going to make another variable called num_elements that keeps track of how many elements of the numbers array have been assigned positive values when the person enters into it. So we'll start that variable at 0. It's important to initialize that to 0 because, again, right now none of the elements of a numbers array have been given a positive value, so the first starting value for that would be 0. So we'll give the person directions here. We'll say enter up to 25 positive integers, enter 0 or a negative when you are finished. And we'll design a for loop that accomplishes this task. So for the for loop, we'll use a counter variable called I again. We'll begin I at 0, since again array indices begin at 0. We're going to keep I less than max size this time, and we'll make I go up by 1 every time. So similar to the last program, we'll have a cin statement. We'll enter the element number square braces I, and then inside this loop, we would need to check if the person is done entering numbers by checking the value of number square braces I. So if that element, number square braces I, is something that's either less than or equal to 0, the person is done entering input, which means underneath this if statement, we can put a break that would end that loop. And now in this loop, there is one more thing we would need to keep track of, which is how many elements of a numbers array have been assigned a positive value through this cin statement. So that means num_elements would have to go up by 1 at some point in this loop, and we'd have to be careful where we place that. We would not want to place it either right before or after the cin statement, because that assumes that number square braces I is something positive. If we ever got past this if statement, though, we could be assured that number square braces I, meaning whatever that element was, is something that's positive. So that'd be the place to put that statement. You'd have to put it right here, num_elements++. If we made it to this line of code here, number square braces I is something that's greater than 0, which means we can increase the number of elements that are positive by 1, which is what that variable is keeping track of. And now to output the elements, you could use, again, a little message that clarifies that. So your positive integers are shown below. And we could use another for loop for that. So we could reuse I since it's local to each for loop. Only this time, I will not be less than max size. I will be less than this variable num_elements that represents how many elements of that array have received a positive value through input. So we'll do I less than num_elements, and then I++. And just like the last program, that would be a cout statement with number square braces I. And you want to put a space after each element just for formatting purposes. And again, we'll put an endl when that loop is done. So again, notice the role of the max size variable. That's meaning you could type in up to 25 positive integers. And the num_elements variable keeps track of exactly how many elements of that array actually are positive in value. So let's run this, see if we're good to go here. And we are. So enter up to 25 positive integers, enter 0 or negative when you're finished. So let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then -1. So it looks like both loops correctly processed things. The first loop ended when we typed in -1, and also kept track that there were 5 elements that have positive values to them. So the second loop printed out only 2 through 10, didn't print that -1. So again, this shows 2 different things. One is a good use of a constant, a defined constant for the size of the array, and also how to process an array that's only partially full. So this structure of keeping track of how many elements have been typed in and then having some control on when you're done entering input is pretty common when programming with arrays.